Well, dairy dumping has been a long tradition in this country, and especially given how dairy prices remain sky high, signs are emerging that the dumping of milk might be significantly higher than previously thought. Let's get into this now. Joining us right now is Sylvain Charlebois. He is the professor, director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University, also the co-host of the Food Professor podcast. A good listen, if I don't say so myself. Professor, good to see you this morning. So let's talk about this. We saw this video that went viral a couple of months ago of a local dairy farmer dumping milk. It seems that's really just sort of the tip of the iceberg of dumping in this country.
Yeah, 30,000 liters of milk. That's a lot of milk, a lot of good. It's food for all of us. And at the time, I remember that Dairy Farmers of Canada kind of minimized the issue, stating that it was an isolated incident, that perhaps the farmer didn't manage his herd all that well. But the reality is that there's way more waste. We're working right now with McGill University, looking at some of the numbers, and some of the numbers are pretty alarming. I won't tell you exactly what that number is, but it's quite substantial. Milk dumping is a problem in Canada, and with supply management, we shouldn't be wasting anything, unlike in the US or other places around the world. Supply management allows us to produce what we need. So wasting milk on the farm shouldn't be allowed.
And Sylvain, how does that translate, before we get into the sort of other tentacles of this, how does that translate into the grocery store shelves? I mean, we see the price of sort of milk and dairy products continuing to rise year after year. It's almost like mandated in a sense. But how does this impact us, just day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. If you actually disallow surpluses to enter the market, obviously it will inflate prices at retail. But I mean, supply management and the Canadian Dairy Commission, there are ways to actually reroute some of those surpluses, process that surplus, and sell it. There are ways to do this. In fact, I mean, you were talking about another tentacle to this story. We now know that there is a plant in Kingston that exactly does that. It actually uses Canadian milk, processes Canadian milk, and produces baby formula. But that plant is owned by China, a Chinese company, and all of the production is actually shipped to China. You have to wonder, why aren't we doing this for ourselves in Canada?
So do you have a sense of why that is? Is it because we have to get rid of the milk that we can't use, but somehow it works around it if it's a foreign user of it?
Well, milk dumping is easy, Nick. I mean, you just open up the valve. I mean, you saw the video. It's pretty easy to do. And it is away from cameras and eyes. Milk dumping in Canada is very easy. It's in the barn. You can't really see it. Unless you actually make it illegal, it will continue to happen. That's the problem in Canada. And so we need to think about, I don't think that the Canadian public is willing to accept milk dumping anymore.
Yeah, and you're definitely sort of sounding the alarm about this, Sylvain. And you talked also. I was sort of scrolling through your Twitter feed last night, sort of trying to prepare for this. You talk about how we're paying attention to sort of TikTok, we're paying attention to foreign objects in the sky, potentially from China. But this might be even more pressing for a more wider swath of the Canadian population. This connection to Canada, China, and our milk supply.
Exactly. So we have this processing plant run and owned by a Chinese company, and we don't know exactly what goes on there. We've seen reports from the CBC showing that there's been some issues related to that specific plant. That plant actually cost $336 million to build, and part of it was subsidized by Ontario taxpayers. I believe that the subsidy was $24 million. So it's really weird, Nick, to see Canadian taxpayers subsidizing the building of a plant, only to see all that product being shipped overseas to China.
Sounds like there's a lot more to come on this story, so we'll continue the conversation another time. In the meantime, Sylvain Charlebois, professor, director of the Agri-Food Analytics Lab at Dalhousie University. Always appreciate the time. Thanks for being here.
Take care, Nick.